So I made a video for Twitter and Twitter didn't post it. So it was supposed to announce that we have a Discord group coming, and the Discord group is going to be made for the writing community so that we could have writers working with editors, working with beta readers, and just working all together on projects or just talking in general. That's kind of my main focus with the group. But right now I can't seem to get the robot to work so we can get people into roles without people screwing up roles. So it's a work in progress. I'll make a big announcement video when the time comes. So in today's video, I want to talk about getting a spark idea and getting the motivation to continue an idea. So making a separate video on that side, though, is a couple writing class ideas. Sorry, not writing class ideas, writing classes to help with ideas and such. There was a famous writer, I'm trying to remember his name off the top of my head. He had done like a writing course at a college, and all of his videos were posted online. That would be a good place to start. When I do the video, I'll talk about his stuff and how his stuff works. But one of the things he had was you had to be either a plotter or something else. I'm trying to remember. Usually what I go is you either have a floor plan or you wing it. That's kind of how I say it. It's like a plotter and a planner or something like that. But basically what it comes down to is either you have an idea where you want to go. So you have your outline. Your outline will tell you what you need to do, and you know where you're going. And then you follow that outline, and it'll get you to the end. And a lot of the times, people that just wing it, and I'm guilty of winging it too, is wing it people are just like, I like this idea, I'm going to go with it, and they just start writing it. 90% of the time, I've never seen anyone in the 10% margin. 9 out of 10 times, so 90% of the time, people will write a book and then they will just stop because they'll write it and then there's nowhere else they can go. They have no great idea or plan to follow. They just kind of write it. Now, the 10% is the mere fact that people will just do that and they'll succeed at it. So I have to give you props there if you're part of the 10% that could just pull a story out of thin air and just keep going. With me, I have to figure out how to plot it and keep going, because if not, then I lose motivation. So in the long run, I use my outline to help me keep myself motivated. I always see the end goal and know how to get to the end goal, but I have to grind out through the monotonous small shit that takes place in between. So I always have to sit through the little stupid dialogue scene just before I can get to a major big fight. So that was kind of like a small topic I wanted to talk about in this video, was how to keep yourself motivated. And with that, that's kind of how I keep myself motivated in my writing. And it does help, but if you have that struggling anxiety, depression, or something, just remember that you have to tell yourself to do it. There's no easy way out of it. You have to do it. You have to go through the grind. And the only person that's going to tell you to tell that story is yourself. No one else has the idea, so you're going to have to do it. And when I'm saying that no one has that idea, is everybody's story is unique, and like I've stated before, you need to focus on the characters more than the plot. There's always rehashed plots, the hero's tale and all that. I've said it before, but your story is unique because of how you tell it. So you need to tell it in order to do it. So even though, and the prime example of this is, even though you can get into a horrible rot of not being motivated to write it, you have to grind through it. Because I remember writing Flux, I had taken 3 chapter ideas and melted it down into 1 on accident. So I took this huge action 3 chapter scenario and boiled it down to 1 chapter and made it a really good solid chapter. But I murdered 3 chapters. I think it was 3 chapters. It was 2 or 3 into 1, which caused me to go behind schedule. not ahead of schedule, behind schedule in writing, because I had to fill in that. I had to fill at least 2 of those chapters in. I believe it was 2 of those chapters in with bullshit. And it wasn't really like, oh, this is, the characters are just going to not really do anything. The next 2 chapters are just going to float here. No, I turned those 2 chapters into more of a character study, and it was doing more backstory. So when you guys actually do get to read Flux, you'll know which chapters they are. Those weren't the worst part of writing. Those were actually, it was teeth pulling because it took me, I think, 3 months to get through it, and it's just sitting there, and like every time I wanted to go back to it, I'd sit there and go, all right, what do I do with these characters? How do I tell this section that I am making up at the top of my head? Because this is one of those times where I'm winging it, and I hate winging it. But at least in this time frame, I had an in and I had an out. So I had a way into the chapters and had a way out of the chapters. But I couldn't just go write a paragraph, call it a chapter, and call it a day. No, I had to legit sit there and figure out how to get this story told in the span of the chapters I was missing to fill in that gap to get me to the next part. And it was crazy because I didn't know how to approach it. And then later on in like relativity and velocity, it started to like be more of a godsend, I guess, because I started to show the other side of things when it came to the big picture. So I'm kind of grateful that I did go back and add in that side of things, because it does help character development. It does show kind of a little bit of an origin story. I don't like writing origin stories, but in that case I had to do it. It does add more character to one of the characters, and then also shows like the other side of the coin. Like it wasn't just all of a bad idea. So that's how I had to deal with getting. Basically, I had to motivate myself to get through just a bullshit area. And it's not really, to me, it's not a bad chapter. I can name one section off the top of my head that I absolutely hate, and I still hate looking at towards the final draft, because I don't know how to fix it, which I need an editor to sit down with me, clean up most of the grammar, but actually figure out like why this mechanically does not work. I know why it doesn't work. Looking at it, I don't like it. I would just cut it completely, but I don't know what to do if I cut it. So let's move on to the spark idea. So the spark idea is, how do you get motivated to pick up the pen or start typing? Best idea is, from what I've realized after a while, ask a question. Usually starting with the word what if, idea A, and idea B. Or idea A. Wow, I can't even say that right. Idea A and idea B combined. So, for example, we'll use Flux. What if Blade Runner and Mass Effect came together? Use that. But I never did. I just had a better idea for it, which is Mass Effect, Blade Runner, and Firefly in a blender. That's my idea. So, when it came to Fantasy War, which is still like a temporary title, I still haven't figured out a better title. It's so cliched and stupid. Was what if I took different elements and combined them together? And I started off with an idea, which was something along the lines of D&D, where I've had a character who's magical and a character that isn't magical joining forces. And that kind of sparked an idea, and I just started running with it. So when you have a spark idea like that, run with it. There are, like I said before, there are many stories told already. It's how you make it that makes it more creative and original. Again, always focus on characters. So, I mean, having a magical character and a non-magical character bicker and argue, and then have to realize they have to join together to save the world or universe or whatever, works. Because it's just something not that many people see. I mean, you get the whole romantic love triangle bullshit where a male and a female will fight constantly until at the end they love each other very much. I hate that stupid trope. But, I mean, in the long run, you can still write characters where they start at opposite ends and then they have to learn to join together. I even think Iron Man and most of the Avengers did that. I mean, nobody really liked Tony Stark, but after a while they had to learn to work with him. So this was kind of, again, another concept idea to help people with a spark. I gave you Fantasy War. I'll give you how I got going with Flux. Besides all the bad stuff, which, if I get enough likes or comments wondering about the bad stuff, I'll talk about the bad stuff when I feel like I don't have to do it just because. I feel like I'm just good if I talk about it freely. I'm just feeling like I'm doing it because. If you guys are actually concerned and want to hear that side of the story, then fine. I'll tell it for the 100th fucking time, because I always tell it constantly, because it's kind of tied into how Flux became. But the good part about it, before it goes all dark, is I was a huge fan of Mass Effect, and how I got introduced to Mass Effect was my one friend had it for his 360, and I borrowed it off of him, and it got to the point where I played it so much that my friends would come to me and ask me how to play it, because, and I hit my light on accident. It got to the point where I was the expert at the game. I had a friend that was an expert at Skyrim. I had a friend that was an expert at Fallout, and we had a friend that was an expert in Final Fantasy games. So I became the guy that was an expert at playing Mass Effect. I had played Mass Effect 1 about over 30 times, got all the endings, tried all the classes, got all the good weapons, and then Mass Effect 2 I did about the same and didn't do all the classes because most of them are basically cookie cutter, and then they changed a couple of them. So I was really invested in the world. I had the books, I read the books, I did read a couple of comic books, but I was really invested in the world. So when it comes to Mass Effect 3, I pre-ordered it, and I remember I played Mass Effect on Xbox, and then it finally moved over to PlayStation, because then I got Mass Effect 2. I had it on PC as well, but PC I ended up losing my account, so I lost all of my games. So I don't have it on PC anymore, but I would love to go back and play it on PC, even though it's crap on PC. I played Mass Effect 1 on Xbox only, because that was the only way you could play it. Because then Mass Effect 2 was ported over to PS3, and then I played Mass Effect 2 from Xbox 360 with no DLC. When I remember, you'd get to a certain point in the campaign, and the game would tell you had to switch out discs. And then if you went to a certain area, it'd still tell you to switch out discs. I remember how bad it was on Mass Effect 2. Ooh. And then PS3, you just had the one Blu-ray disc. That was beautiful. And then you also, because they didn't have Mass Effect 1, they had the interactive Dark Horse comic just to fill you in and pick your decisions. It was horrible, but I mean, whatever. So then we come to Mass Effect 3. It's been hyped up from Mass Effect 2, which was, they hinted at a loading screen that there was going to be another one. This was supposed to be the big climactic ending. So when I pre-ordered it, I made my own Omni tool, which I still have to go get an actual one, just so I can put it on my weapon wall, because I have Thor's hammer and such. But I still pre-ordered it, and I waited out there in the freezing cold, because it was March it came out, and I'm in the north, so it's always fucking snowing in the cold. So I waited out there, got it at midnight, went home, put it in, and I wasn't happy. Now, I was a huge fan, but I wasn't happy with what I got. I liked how in Mass Effect 1 it was strictly just an RPG, and it had FPS elements and such. There was crap controls, but I mean, it was still a good story. Mass Effect 2 kind of balanced it out, and I enjoyed playing it a lot more. But 3 was strictly just action, and they even had an option to take off the story options. You just had to play straightforward whatever Commander Shepard chose. Not you, Commander Shepard. So I got to... Spoilers, this game's fucking old, I'm just gonna spoil it. I got to the part where you had to choose between killing Legion or Tally. And I still have a statue of Legion. And there's a reason why I liked Legion. Legion's character was a Geth, which is Geth were bad, but he wasn't listening to the old machines, which were the Reapers, basically. They were heretics. So the thing about that was Reapers were trying to destroy the universe. I'm trying not to say the whole entire thing to save us time, but I enjoyed his character, and I would go through his loyalty mission on the one guest ship, him and Tally, and we would both just hack bots and watch bots just shoot each other because, you know, they were hacked. So that's why I kind of enjoyed the character. He was just a character. His dialogue was weird. He was still talking like a robot, but he had N7 armor. Like, he had the one plate on his arm. He had a bolt through his chest, and he always had a sniper rifle. I liked him more than Thane. And Thane was like the assassin emo kid. And I fell more in love with Legion, and I wanted to always help him out. And every time I went back, I always chose to help him out more. And the hardest time was trying to convince the council, or the Quarian council, that we needed to work together. And it's that court case is always so hard to plead. So I always just choose to have Tally exiled and all that, because it's like pulling teeth trying to get her to get both sides. It's either her dad's gonna die or she's gonna get exiled. That's kind of your only option. So we get to the point in Mass Effect 3 where basically you either have to choose Legion dies or Tally dies. And the problem with this is the beneficial choices you get is you either get a fleet of Geth or you get a fleet of Quarians. And the Quarians get to go back to their planet, I believe, at the end of that storyline part. Not the end of the campaign. But Geth end up destroying the Quarians if you choose the Geth. So I didn't like these choices at all, and I could not choose to give them peace. Like, there's in certain situations where you have to choose left or right. They'll give you the option if your charisma and your karma is all the way up to a certain level. Like, if you're a really good Parthenon or a renegade, you could choose an option. But because I play both sides in my first playthrough, I couldn't have it. So I had to watch Legion die twice. I did it the first time, went back, saw the Tally choice, and had to do it again. So I had to watch Legion die twice. Tally only had to die once. I threw my fucking controller halfway across the room and said, I'm done. I'm done. And that was the moment I quit playing Mass Effect. And I was done with Mass Effect. And I thought it was Abomination, like everyone else did when they got to the ending. But I only viewed the ending online, and I'm just like, this is bullshit. Why would they do this? Which, if you don't know Mass Effect's whole story, Mass Effect's thing is every choice you make has a consequence. In the first game, you had to pick Ashley or Kato. And then, I know I'm probably saying his name wrong, but it's, again, 2 o'clock in the morning. You had to choose one of them, and once you choose one of them dies, and you never see them again. Unless you make a save where you save them instead of the other person. That person continued on into 3. I mean, that choice is really stupid because Ashley, I'm gonna use Ashley as an example, Ashley kind of just disowned you in 2, and then 3 she shows back up and going, oh hey, what's up? The fuck? But a lot of your choices always came back from what you do. Like, they always came back to haunt you. So there was always the risk of going one way or the other. 3, it's like they threw it out the fucking window. And even with the cookie cutter ending where it didn't seem like anything happened or nothing mattered, I didn't care. Like, I didn't care because the choices you were making I felt were bullshit and stupid. So I don't think it's a bad game. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's the greatest one in the series, especially against Andromeda, which I refuse to pick up. Not even because of the buggy bullshit. It didn't interest me. But after I put down Mass Effect 3, I started writing a fanfic because I didn't want to be Commander Shepard anymore, and I wanted to be something else. I wanted to be something else. This is where I say me, and then after a while it's gonna just not be me anymore. So being a huge fan of it, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just tell this story, and I'm going to stop the video here and tell the story in the next part. So there's going to be a part 2.